You know, there's a strange peace that comes with living on a ranch. The wide open skies, the rustling grass under your boots, the smell of the earth in the morning. It's not just a place, it's a way of life. I moved out here for a reason, to get away from the nosy neighbors, the cliques, the drama, and especially the HOA nightmares of the suburbs. So imagine my shock when I found myself at the center of a full-blown HOA Karen meltdown on my own private land. And the best part, she had no idea who I was until it was way too late. Let me take you back to the beginning. I had recently purchased a sprawling 40-acre ranch in a semi-rural area about 30 minutes outside the city. The land came with horses, a barn, a small vineyard, and a fixer-upper ranch-style home that I'd been working on myself. It was peaceful, isolated, and most importantly, not part of an HOA. The nearest neighborhood was over a mile away, and I liked it that way. I work as a regional director for a massive real estate management company. You've probably seen our signs on apartment buildings and business parks without even knowing it. We also handle HOA management for dozens of neighborhoods across the state. So, yeah, I know how HOAs work. One weekend, I invited a few friends from the city to the ranch. Nothing wild, just some good food, music, and a bonfire. We had maybe 8 people total. It was a crisp fall evening, the fire was crackling, and the sky was studded with stars. We were telling stories and laughing, when out of nowhere, headlights appeared down my long driveway. A white SUV crept up, windows rolled up tight. At first, I thought maybe it was a lost delivery driver. But then, the window rolled down just a crack, and out came that unmistakable voice. "Excuse me, you can't have a party out here. You're disturbing the neighborhood." Now let's pause. First of all, I live on a ranch, a solid mile from the nearest home. Second, there's no neighborhood out here. Third, and most importantly, who the heck was this woman and why was she on my land? I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. "Ma'am, this is private property. You're trespassing." That's when she fully rolled down her window and I got a good look at her. Mid-50s, tight bob haircut, pearls at a bonfire, and a clipboard sitting in her passenger seat. Karen. HOA Karen. She puffed herself up and said, "I'm the president of the Elmwood Homeowners Association, and I received multiple complaints about this unauthorized gathering." Elmwood. That rang a bell. That's one of the HOAs managed by my company. The irony didn't hit me just yet. I was more confused about how she thought her HOA's jurisdiction extended a mile outside its boundaries. I said, "Again, this is not part of Elmwood or any HOA. You're on my ranch. Please turn around." But she wasn't done. Oh no. She sneered and said, "If you don't shut this, are illegal activities happening here?" I raised an eyebrow. Illegal activities? Like roasting marshmallows? That's when she pulled out her phone, dramatically dialed 911, and started giving a false report. "Yes, officer, there's a large party happening on rural land with possible underage drinking and fireworks. It's out of control." My friends were stunned. Some even started to pack up, unsure of what was about to happen. Me? I just smiled and said, "You really don't want to do this, lady." She snapped back, "Oh, I do. People like you think you can just waltz in and disturb our peace, but not on my watch." Within 20 minutes, 2 sheriff's vehicles rolled up the driveway, lights on but no sirens. They stepped out, professional and calm, clearly familiar with the kind of nonsense rural calls can bring. "Evening. We got a report of a disturbance?" one of them asked. I explained everything, how I lived there, how the land was private, how the only disturbance was Karen trespassing. I even offered to show them my property deed. Karen, meanwhile, was still yapping about community regulations and how I needed approval from the board. That's when I pulled out my wallet and showed the officers my business card. Their eyebrows shot up. The younger officer chuckled. "You're that guy? The director for Ridgeview Property Group?" I nodded. "And we happen to manage the Elmwood HOA?" The older officer turned to Karen, whose face was starting to lose color. "Ma'am, is that true?" Karen stammered, I didn't know." The officer looked at her with a mix of pity and amusement. "You're the HOA president of a neighborhood he oversees, and you called the cops on him, on land he owns?" Silence. They asked her one final time to leave the property, and she finally backed out of the driveway, completely humiliated. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. The next morning, I called our company's HOA compliance manager and asked her to pull the most recent reports from the Elmwood HOA. Turns out, Karen had already racked up multiple complaints from residents, unauthorized citations, aggressive confrontations, even stalking one woman for painting her fence beige instead of almond tan. So I did what any reasonable boss would do. I called for a board meeting. At the next Elmwood HOA board session, I showed up in a suit, clipboard in hand. Karen didn't even recognize me at first. Then I introduced myself formally. Hello, everyone. I'm David Whitman, Regional Director for Ridgeview Property Group. I'll be reviewing compliance issues and misconduct by current board members, specifically your acting president, Karen. Her eyes went wide like dinner plates. She tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. You've overstepped your authority numerous times, but the worst offense? Calling 911 on a private citizen, falsifying a report, and trespassing, all while acting as if you represented the HOA. I showed video footage from my ranch security cameras, including audio of her threats and lies. The board sat in stunned silence. One elderly board member finally said, Karen, this isn't just overreach. This is dangerous. We can't have you representing us like this. A motion was made, a vote was taken, and just like that, Karen was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. But the consequences didn't stop there. Since her actions involved falsifying a police report while claiming to act under our management company's authority, we issued a formal statement and flagged her in our internal system. That effectively blacklisted her from participating in any HOA leadership role across over 200 communities statewide. In other words, she didn't just lose her role, she lost every future chance of being HOA royalty ever again. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Karen, handwritten, sloppy. She tried to apologize, saying she didn't realize who I was and that she was just trying to maintain order. But you and I both know that wasn't about order. That was about control, entitlement, power trips. I never wrote back. Instead, I framed the letter and hung it in my ranch house, right above the fireplace. A reminder that sometimes karma doesn't take its sweet time. It rides in fast on a sheriff's cruiser and shows up with flashing lights. So here's my advice. Never assume the person you're harassing is powerless. Never assume your fake authority means anything on someone else's land. And if you're an HOA Karen on a power trip, maybe do a background check before you call 911 on the guy who signs your paycheck. Because this time, Karen messed with the wrong rancher, and now she's out of power, out of the HOA, and out of excuses.